It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today.
Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill. And today, in honor of being at almost our 50th episode, we want to talk about, I think, what we are genuinely experts in. And I think it's very foundational to what we do within our coaching program and our approach, and really what we help women with the most. And I think this is probably one of the most misunderstood topics in the entire health and fitness space. And we want to talk about metabolism. Now, so many women come to us and think they are an anomaly, that their metabolism is just slower, that it's genetics, that there's all these other factors playing into the reason that they can't lose weight. However, when we dig into what their inputs look like, right, their calories, their consistency, their sleep, their stress, all of these components, it's usually uncovered pretty quickly where they're going wrong. So we want to talk about, is your metabolism actually slow? Can it slow down? Can it break? Can it speed up? And what to do to really optimize and use your metabolism to your advantage instead of feeling like you're fighting against it, trying to lose the same 5 pounds over and over again. So we'll talk about really like what metabolism is, because again, I think it's a very misunderstood topic, and how it adapts or what it actually does, how to improve it, and just how to, again, capitalize in the long run to really get your metabolism, again, to work in your favor. And I think, again, there's a lot of mistruths, untruths, whatever you want to call it within the space. Again, specifically around metabolism and 1,200 calorie diets, right? There's all of these things that go hand in hand with this. So we want to dive into how to use this to your advantage. So where do you want to start with this? How do we want to break down metabolism? I think we should talk about really daily energy expenditure and what that all
I think that's perfect. I actually just filmed an Instagram post about this today because I've seen a couple other fitness accounts this week posting saying like, sorry to break it to you. Like they're trying to be honest with their audience and say, sorry to break it to you, but if you're a short girl, you probably do have to diet at 12, 13, 1,400 calories to see fat loss. And I was like, as somebody who's only 5 feet tall, let me go ahead and comment on this and give context, right? Because there is some truth to your makeup, your physical build does influence this, right? Like if me and somebody who's 5'8" have the same muscle to fat ratio or the same age, whatever, that person's going to burn a little bit more calories than me every day because they're carrying around more tissue in their body that takes energy to just live, right?
Yeah.
With that said, that does not mean I cannot adapt mine from my baseline to become better and better. So that's the core of what we do with our clients. And I think you hit the nail on the head with one of those things, saying a lot of women think, well, it's because of my age. It's because of my hormones. It's because of genetics. And it's like, time out. After you're 60 or whenever you're postmenopausal, really, yes, your hormones do slow it down a little bit. But based on your baseline, we can still speed it up from whatever your baseline is, right? Yes, I am short, but based on my baseline, I can still speed it up. So we want to go over some of the things that allow you to do that. So when we're talking about TDEE, when Jill just said that, that's total daily energy expenditure. All of the different ways, when we talk about calories in, calories out, a lot of people think calories out is exercise. Okay, I'm going to track how many calories I burn during my workout. Well, in reality, that is a teeny part of the amount of calories you burn in a given day. So there are 4 components to TDEE. Calories burned during exercise is like 5% of your total calories burned. There's NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's like maybe 15, sometimes maybe up to 20%. So people who are more like fidgety, people who just naturally move more during the day are burning more calories during the day. It's non-intentional exercise, but you're burning calories. The third component is the thermic effect of food, which is it takes energy for our body to break down the food that we consume. So the more food you eat, you're actually burning more calories when you are eating more food, but also each macronutrient takes a different amount of energy to burn. So like it takes more work for our body to break down protein than it does carbs. So if you eat more protein, just in that alone, you're going to be burning more energy on a daily basis. And then now those 3 that I just went over, are the small little things. The big rock is our base metabolic rate. So how much energy does it take for us to just be a couch potato or a vegetable and do nothing, right? Our body is still burning calories just to keep our heart pumping, our brain working, to sustain muscle tissue, to sustain lean bone mass, right? If we start burning up that energy, it's going to break down these important tissues for health. So the cool part about it is we can actually look at our BMR, that big chunk that's like 65 to 70% of our total daily energy expenditure, and we can speed that one up. And we're going to get way more bang for our buck spending our time on that versus spending time on how many calories did I burn during this one little workout, right? So that is kind of what we do at the core. Now, how do we speed up our basal metabolic rate? Increasing muscle mass, right? I just went over a couple of the other things that are maybe smaller, right? Maybe we get more intentional movement through the day. Maybe we increase our protein. Maybe we do work out a little bit more. But how many calories you burn during that workout, I don't care about. What I care about is, are we sending signals to adapt your body for strength and adding muscle? If so, now you're burning more calories all the time in those hours that you are not working out. That's the thing we want to work towards. Do you want to get into, I guess, things that also affect base metabolic rate are going to be things like stress, things that impact our hormones over the course of time. So again, it's like if somebody is postmenopausal and they have hormones that they're going to have a more of a challenging time, obviously losing body fat than somebody who's 26 and has regular cycles. But if we can add more stress reduction signals, they're going to have an easier time. If we can take away some of the high stress inputs, they're going to have an easier time because their body isn't working this uphill battle against its own survival. So those are kind of all the big components that we're looking at when we want to improve our energy expenditure, AKA calories burned in a given day.
Yeah. And there's so many functions and processes of our body that affect basal metabolic rate. And like Jess said, the thermic effect of food, the energy expenditure in exercise, or just our general movement throughout the day, that's about 30% of the total calorie burn. And we tend to put all of our eggs in that like 5 to 10% basket, right? And we're like zoomed in, like laser locked on this little bitty component, and we're ignoring and even down regulating the biggest component, that basal metabolic rate. So like Jess said, thyroid function, sleep, stress management, all of those things can down regulate your metabolism as your body is trying to conserve energy, right? So when your body is in a state of thriving and it's good and things are balanced and optimized and you're fueling your body doesn't see the need to conserve energy because it recognizes things are balanced and regulated and being taken care of and healthy, and it knows how to use that energy efficiently. And it can burn because it also knows you're going to give it more energy in the form of calories. But when you are dieting or chronically stressed or eating a lot of processed foods and your body's like having a hard time digesting and gut health gets wonky, whatever, there's so many different variations. Your metabolism downregulates to compensate for that. Again, to conserve energy in the form of body fat, or just as those calories come in, it uses them differently and less
to
effective.
keep the lights on. I love, Jill uses this analogy a lot of like, if you have a tight budget to live by, you're keeping the lights on first. You're paying your bills first. You're not spending fun money on crazy things. Our body does the same thing to conserve energy. If we're only giving it this much food, it needs to keep the heart pumping. It needs to keep our brain working. It's not saying, yay, we can put energy towards expensive muscle tissue or bone mass or towards hormonal functions like reproduction, right? It's just really trying to do the bare minimum. So I think a lot of people nitpick the concept of starvation mode, right? It's like, well, my body isn't down regulated because I'm giving it less food. That in itself doesn't make sense, right? Less food, you're not going to gain body fat. But you could be chronically slowing down your base metabolic rate because of all the stress inputs that you're giving your body. So hormonally, there's a big picture, zoom out picture that we're not looking at when people are talking in that way.
Right. And then you talk about hormones, right? That all is interconnected, right? These systems are not independent of each other. But this is why when we have women come into our program, more often than not, it's women who have been dieting 5, 10, 15 or more years. They have been chronically trying to restricting their calories, right? Stay at a lower calorie intake for whatever reason. but they think I've been eating 1,200 calories for the last 10 years and I've gained 30 pounds. Well, your metabolism probably downregulated, but I really don't believe that you ate 1,200 calories or less every single day for the last 15 years, right? What likely happens is you're trying to eat 1,200 calories and your metabolism did downregulate, but any overage, right? Because if your metabolism learned to maintain at 1,200 calories, now that's your maintenance, anything over that, your body perceives as a surplus, right? It's extra energy. Calorie surplus is the only way to gain body fat or gain weight in general, right? So you're ending up putting yourself in a surplus. And this is how women spend so much of their adult life dieting and restricting calories, yet gaining weight, right? And then it's my hormones, it's my age, my metabolism's slower than the rest of the world. I'm this complex case that nobody can figure out why she's gaining weight at such low calories. We know you're not being perfect. And I'm some of you are very consistent and that's great. But if you're gaining weight, you're not in a deficit. Now, it's important to know that your metabolism does adapt at a lower intake and a higher intake. It can do it in either direction. It does not break. Your metabolism is not a thing that can break, but it can change. And as you lower calories and it learns to maintain there, that's when you get to that point where it feels like, why am I working so hard? I'm eating so little and I can't.
And it's not working, right?
Right.
So our metabolism adapts to the inputs that we give it. I think what you just said is so important. I want to repeat it. I've seen a lot of fitness influencers, other fitness coaches who are working with people, and it just like hurts my heart to see this, who give this kind of preachy advice of like, sorry, but like if you're at this many calories and you're not losing weight, you're just not in a deficit. You better cut more calories. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Or we could guide that person on how to adapt their body back to higher calories so that the next deficit does not need to be more restrictive, rather than just telling them to keep eating less and less and less. So again, summary of this first section, right? Total daily energy expenditure. The biggest piece of that pie is base metabolic rate. How can we improve it? By helping your hormones and doing all the right things, by not dieting all the time, by adding muscle. Your metabolism is not broken. Your metabolism can adapt to the inputs. Just like it adapted down and you hit a plateau and weight loss felt harder and harder, you can adapt it back up where you're not gaining, but you're at higher calories. So that is kind of what metabolism is all about. Now, in terms of like, I guess we kind of started to get into like, how does it adapt already a little bit? Long-term caloric restriction also, that in itself is a stressor. Anytime you go into a diet, it is also slowing down your metabolism a little bit. Okay. So like when we take women through, anytime you lose weight, you're slowing down your metabolism. Part of it is that thing I just said about me being short, right? Your body now has less physical matter that it needs to keep alive. So it's naturally going to slow down a little bit. Our goal during each of these phases that we just discussed, right? The muscle building phase or the reverse diet phase and during the fat loss phase, our goal is to, during those fat loss phases, maintain as much muscle mass as humanly possible, because that's going to do the least slowing down in a situation that is going to slow down your metabolism. We're also pretty strategic about zooming out and looking big picture over the course of 6 months, over the course of a year, over the course of 3 years, because if the majority of time is spent at those low calories, you're going to have more work on the back end, getting yourself back up as you're adapting back up. So in a dream world, here's what we would do. Every client would live at maintenance, well above 2,000 calories. Grown women, you guys can all adapt your body to more than 2,000 calories. I don't care if you tell me you're 70 years old. We can get you lifting weights and we can get you absolutely 1,000% consuming that much energy. If we're taking in enough protein, right? If we're doing the right things, we absolutely can do that. Now, the goal would be to live at that place for most of your life. If you're living there for 8 or 9 months a year, guess what? Those 3 months a year that you decide to diet, your body is actually going to respond beautifully because it's been all the way up here. So we actually use a tool with our clients sometimes. When our clients struggle with this, often it's like, it's really a lack of self-awareness, right? And our job as a coach is to educate and to point them back to the data to say, okay, here's your options and here's how your body's responding. What do you want to do with this? A lot of times the disconnect is because people think they're doing the right things and they really are trying, but in reality, they're kind of missing the mark. So what we'll do is we use like an audit sheet internally where maybe for this client, I might write out their actual inputs and their actual averages. They're tracking their stuff so I can see their food intake. I'll write their actual average protein, actual average calories, actual how many days a week did they lift for the last 6 months. And I'll put it in a spreadsheet and I'll show them, hey, even though you were targeting 2,200 calories, you only averaged 17 or 1,800 calories all that time that you thought you were at really high calories. So that's why when you are thinking, yeah, I'll go into a cut, just cut me down to 1,800, it's not going to work because you're actually only adapted to 1,800. You're not adapted to 2,200. So I think there's a lot of value in monitoring and measuring data, not as a long-term solution, but as if you have a physique goal, or if you want to monitor, hey, what is my body actually adapted to calorically? What is my maintenance right now? Again, we can adapt your maintenance, but what is it right now? You're going to want to keep data. And again, if your weight is kind of staying the same and your calorie average is X, Y, or Z, that's your current maintenance.
Yeah. And then what Jess said, that goes in the opposite direction, which I think could be pretty self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised how often I have this conversation. So maybe this will resonate with women who come to me and say, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm doing all these things. I can't lose weight. And I say, how many calories are you eating? And they say, I don't know. I would bet my bottom dollar that you are eating more than you think you are, because even if you have this, I think a lot of times psychologically we're restricting in our heads, right? Like we have this like diet mentality and we think, I'm thinking about it and it feels hard, so I must be eating low calorie. But if you're not tracking, you have no idea, right? And if you're not tracking and using data, and again, we use macros specifically for a lot of reasons, listen to other episodes, but we use that so that we have that data to say, this is the thing that's going wrong, and this is the piece of this equation that we need to manipulate to see results. So auditing for the maintenance phase to upregulate your metabolism is so important, but also when you're actually in the deficit phase, you have to know you're
educate,
actually in the deficit, right? And this is why we use different phases also to maximize the efficiency of your metabolism, because even if you diet exactly the way Jess and I tell you to, your metabolism will still downregulate, because like Jess said, and like we explained, eating a lower calorie intake, your body will adapt at some point, even if you're being very strategic about it. So you have to move in phases, and so many women get caught in this trap of dieting year round and can't figure out why they feel so frustrated. But you're tired. You have diet fatigue. I don't want to track my food because I'm putting in all this work and not seeing results, but you're working against your metabolism. You're never going to see the result that you want with the way that you're doing it. Sometimes just taking a step back, going to maintenance, breathing, giving yourself some space to actually eat food and live life, heal your relationship with food, the scale, all of these things. Then dieting is easier. But if you are attempting a calorie deficit, it should be at a time in life where you can commit 100% all in for a certain period of time. Deficits really, I mean, there's no perfect amount of time because everyone's body adapts differently, but 16 weeks is probably like a max for clients.
Max.
So that's 4 months, right? So in my head and in clients' heads, we're like, here's the start date, here's the anticipated end date, which they always have the option to end it sooner based on how they're feeling or if their body's not responding or whatever. But that's it. The rest of the year should be at maintenance. If you think about it, logically, all the efforts you put into dieting, I only have to diet 4 months out of the whole year. You're going to be so much more consistent and your metabolism is going to work so much more in your favor because you have this designated phase just for that. And yeah, you might have to restrict a little, sacrifice a little, whatever, but it's only for a short period of time, not just I'm going to diet until I lose 40 pounds and 20 years later, now it's 50 pounds, right? So manipulating metabolism in that manner is so, so important to your success in the long run.
I like that you also talked about the behavioral aspects of when we practice living at higher calories, all of these other habits become so much easier. So like if you are practicing eating 2,300 calories, you know how much easier it is to hit your ideal protein amount at that number versus 1,200 calories? It's damn near impossible. You have to be precise on every single bite you put in your face if you want to hit your protein amount at 1,200 calories. It's so much easier at high calories to learn to eat proteins appropriately. Then when you cut back a little bit to maybe 1,700 calories, it's way easier to hit because now it's a habit for you. In the same way, our body likes to maintain homeostasis. Our body tries to maintain energy balance. Again, we can adapt it. We can change it over time. But when we are underfed, our body slows down. Naturally, we actually have less NEAT activity. We have less fidgeting and walking and stuff. unintentionally, but that is a known thing that happens when you're dieting because your body is trying to conserve energy, right? So all of these other things start to kind of ramp up in a healthy way when you stop dieting for a while. And I know you talked about this. I think the majority, I want to touch on a couple people. I have like specific past clients in mind that I'm like, I wish I could give them hugs and we could start over. But I do want to touch on the people who really have been at low calories, because I think you were like, well, most people think they're at low calories and they're not. I agree. That's like 90% of women. I have had a couple of these women who are in their 50s or 60s, and they came from this generation where they've literally been dieting for 30 years at 1,200 calories, right? And we're in this maintenance or build phase, and we're telling them, hey, we might need to do this for 4 to 6 months. We might need to build for a while because you're, one, we're postmenopausal. Two, you really have downregulated your metabolism a ton. But then in that time, in that 4 to 6 month window, they're like so horribly, it's so programmed in them that they can't eat anymore, that they only ever get to 1,500 calories or 1,600 calories. And then I don't recommend a deficit because we've not lived at higher calories. And I don't want to put them back in the same restrictive spot that they were when they came to us. And then they feel defeated because they're like, well, I just did this whole build phase. And I'm like, well, you added so many more healthy habits. We added protein. You're now at 1,500 calories as your new norm. But I don't feel comfortable bringing somebody in a deficit from such a low fed state, because it is not, for health and longevity, that is not optimal for their bodies.
It's just not productive or efficient anyway, right? For the state of their metabolism. So yeah, there are women that have been dieting, right? And when I say, you've been at 1,200 calories for 15 years, maybe if you were actually at 1,200 calories that entire time, then you probably maintained your weight. If you gained, it's because you did have days where you were over, right? So 100% though, you cannot recover a 15-year downregulated metabolism, all of these
in a month
things, gut downregulation, right? With that function, in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even 12 or 16 weeks sometimes, right? There are some women who I would love to just say, hey, I want to get you up to maintenance and build muscle for the next 12 months, right? But of course, their world is shattering in their head because they're like, I want to lose fat yesterday. But I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, what is 6 to 12 months when you've been restricting and trying to lose weight and slowly gaining over the last 10 to 20 years, right? So just to put that into perspective, that it takes time. Now, do I think your metabolism is just no hope for you if you don't go to maintenance for 12 months? Of course not. But it is going to take time. It takes calories and energy to build and sustain muscle mass that we want, right? Because we talked about increasing your basal metabolic rate. But you can go into a deficit. Just know that it's probably going to be a little bit more restrictive and a little lower calorie than we'd prefer if we were guiding you through it, because you have this long-standing history that you're
just not there yet. Yeah, your metabolism isn't there yet. And again, that's the case where as good coaches, I hope that our clients feel empowered to, hey, we're going to educate you and give you our recommendation. We're also going to say, here's your choices. If you're choosing to be in a deficit, one, you got to hit your proteins because it's going to be hard, but you can do it, but you probably have to cut lower than maybe we do because we've been at high calories for however many years now, right? I think there's something else. You already touched on this, but I want to lay it out really clearly. When you say somebody's been at really low calories, but then they're gaining weight because they clearly have had higher days, what that looks like is Jill is saying, like, let's say you eat, I have a client who she is so healthy on her work days. This is a client I've had in the past. She eats well, she eats good nutrients, but she eats very low calorie most of her work week. And then she goes to the beach or on boats or whatever on weekends. And then her calories are really high on weekends for her, right? Because 5 out of 7 days every week for years, she's been at 13, 14, 1,500 calories. Again, nutrient dense calories. So I give that to her. But look at that difference now. When she goes out to the beach and has some alcoholic drinks, goes out to restaurants, whatever, and her calories are at 2,900 calories, that's a big difference from 1,300 calories. Whereas me, right, I've spent time adapting my body to higher and higher calories. My norm is probably like 2,300 to 2,500. Let's say I go out on a weekend and I hit 2,900. it's not as big of a difference, right? So for me, it's not as big of a surplus because I've adapted my body to that high calorie amount most of the time.
It's not a massive surplus for you, right?
Right. So it's the same behavior on the weekend. And that's how we can say, oh, we can get away with having balance or also going out. Again, most of the time, we still want to make healthy choices that make us feel good. We want to get most of those calories from whole foods. We have to do it in the right way, because if you just overconsume calories, you're going to store the extra calories in body fat, not in muscle tissue. So you have to eat your protein and strength train too. But if you can adapt your body up to those high calorie places, then when you do go out with girlfriends and have nachos or bottomless mimosas or something, like, it really won't impact you that much from a physique standpoint. So I just wanted to clarify that. Again, it's not that there's anything wrong with you if you go out and now you gain weight from it. It's like, we can undo that over the course of time.
Right. Gaining weight, gaining fat, also whole nother topic.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Very true.
Ultimately, from a metabolic standpoint, Jess and I joke about this all the time. If you see us out socially, we're eating like 24/7. We're both foodies. We love to eat. We always joke that I order like 2 dishes everywhere I go because I just want to try.
She does.
And I'm hungry.
I call our household is fueled by Asian City, like not fueled by balance, fueled by Asian City because of the pad thai takeout consumption. Okay. Like, we really love food.
Yeah. So if you think about men, right? You're like, I want to lose weight. I try so hard. I'm so perfect. I'm always dieting, but my husband wants to lose weight. And all he does is like stop drinking his 1 soda in the morning. He dropped 10 pounds this week. It is because men typically do not have the chronic calorie restrictive dieting history that women have. So metabolically, they're in a healthier place. And it's the same thing as if you feel like you have a friend and you're like, how does she eat so much? And it seems like she never gains weight or she doesn't stress around food or whatever. It's probably because metabolically she's in a good place, right? Whether she has a dieting history or not, she's in a good spot, right? Where her metabolism, like Jess said, can sustain an influx. And our bodies, because we don't constantly fluctuate calories or we're not always overfeeding, right? If we do have an influx of calories, our body and our metabolism are in a state to handle that influx and use that energy effectively, right? Also, on the back end of that, not you never, ever need to burn off calories. However, we do also work out consistently. So odds are maybe I go out for a calorie influx on Saturday. I also am probably using those calories before, during, after this calorie influx at some point. And I'm like, heck, I'm going to build it. I'm put it towards building muscle, right? So that's the other thing too, is that we have all this muscle to build, sustain all of that with where we're at in this season of life after lifting, metabolically being in a healthy place, all of that too.
And if you don't diet for a long time, just like your husbands have not been dieting for a long time, then when you do go to diet, it's like the first time you ever dieted again, right? Because you guys can all probably remember that time when it wasn't hard and you're like, I don't know, my body used to respond. And it's like, well, that's because it wasn't adapted to it yet, right? So there's the one component that Jill just talked about of those men are just not dieting all the time, right? There's also the component of, usually if they are working out, they're trying to get jacked. Whereas usually when women are working out, they're trying to burn calories doing cardio, and doing cardio downregulates your metabolism. So cardio is super important for heart health. I like to incorporate sprints. I like to do that every now and then because really just to test myself. I don't want to lose a skill that I have, right? I do not do cardio for fat loss or physique. Okay. So I'll manipulate my metabolism, or I'll manipulate my caloric intake by reducing my food or being strategic with my macros. I will not manipulate my calories out by adding cardio, because basically what happens is when you become efficient at an exercise, your body adapts to it, right? So when I'm adapting to strength training, the adaptation is that my muscle says, oh, shoot, we got to get stronger to handle this load next time. So it adds muscle tissue. When I am adapting to cardio, my body says, oh, shoot, I better get more efficient at this exercise, meaning I need to have more energy reserve next time I run. So like, let's say your Apple Watch says, oh, during this workout, you burn 300 calories. Guess what? The more and more you do that exact same workout, the less and less calories your body is actually burning. Regardless of what that watch is saying, your body is becoming more efficient at that exercise because that's the adaptation that happens after cardio. So you actually end up burning less calories over time. Whereas putting that muscle tissue on Now I'm carrying around more of that expensive tissue that burns calories all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I use that analogy a lot of like passive income versus like clock in.
Oh, yeah.
Type, right? With cardio. So cardio, I always equate to like, all right, you got to your job, you start at this minute, you clock in, you get paid while you're there, you clock out, pay's done, right? Until you clock back in. With having more muscle and lift strength training versus cardio, it's more of like passive income where you're burning more calories around the clock. So if I'm 140 pounds and I've been lifting for 10 years and somebody's next to me around the same age, same height, same weight, and has never touched a dumbbell in their life, for one, our physiques are going to look totally different. But two, I could probably eat a lot more food than that girl, right? So
1000%. Yeah.
This is where we get in that pigeonhole of focusing on calories burned. And it's the worst use of our time when we're trying to lose fat, right? So I'll have clients say, but I only burn 200 calories during my lifts. And I'm like, not relevant, because we are taking all that effort that we put in and maximizing that 70% versus messing around with this 5 to 10%. That's doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I don't even remember the last time I did a structured cardio session, right? So I think it's important to understand that. Now, I want to be clear. I feel like I always have to make this disclaimer in that cardio in and of itself has a lot of benefits when it comes to your health. We're strictly talking about metabolic
adaptation and physique change.
And fat loss, physique change, not health. Run for your health if you like it. And running is not inherently bad, right?
Also, though, the more you run, so like the clients that we have who love to run 3-4 times a week, when we are in that muscle building phase, so one, we have to add recovery modalities, because now this is a lot. If they want to add strength training on top of running, now we're hitting that stress button more often, right? So we now have to add more recovery modalities. Also, now when we go into that reverse diet or muscle building phase, we are cranking their calories up way higher because of all the energy that they are using during those runs. So it is a more strategic dial that we have to mess with, which is why a lot of times we actually downregulate that intensity during our muscle building phases, because it's just an easy thing to manipulate to speed up your metabolism without having to add more and more and more work. In one of my like stress recovery certifications that I did, they talk a lot about coaching to elite athletes. And like, if you guys think about an Olympic athlete, they're doing all the things, right? They're training 3 times a day, and they're burning their bodies into the ground with stress. But on the opposite hand, they're sleeping 10 hours a night. They're doing cupping, massage, sauna, every single recovery modality that they can do, because this is their profession, right? They have to balance out that stress load somehow. The average person does not have all that time to dedicate towards those recovery modalities. So it's a little bit easier for us to say, okay, let's pull back the stress triggers some. All this intense cardio might be one of those stress triggers during this specific phase.
Yeah, absolutely. So really to maximize your metabolism, we talked about diet periodization, right? Going through these phases where we are intentionally just fueling your body, building muscle, living life, right? Not thinking about fat loss and dieting all the time. So diet periodization is super important, and having those really intentional deficit periods of life. So it's really more about eating strategically and eating more food strategically, not just generic calorie, carb restriction, whatever. And I also want to be clear that there is not a diet that speeds up your metabolism. If anybody ever says that, they are lying straight to your face. I'm starting to see ads that say GLP-1 speed up your metabolism. I want to bang my head on the wall. That could not be more incorrect. I'm not really sure what basis they're coming from when they make that statement, but I want to be clear that no diet speeds up your metabolism. No matter what diet you follow, it is calories in, calories out, and you have to be in a calorie deficit. And this is why we talk about metabolism first and foremost with clients, because if you understand this, everything else falls in line and makes sense, right? You're like, oh, I just have to manipulate, these things, these variables, and pull these levers. And all of a sudden, weight loss feels really simple.
I want to hit home on that too. When you said there's no diet that speeds up your metabolism, there's also no energy drink that speeds up I see these Celsius cans at Costco and they say metabolism boosting. Guess what? So is like crack cocaine, honestly. Like anything that you take that is going to get your heart rate beating faster is burning more calories, right? Calorie burning is not the same as speeding up your metabolism. You are burning those calories as a short-term thing. Guess what? The long-term adaptation of that chronic stimulant use is actually slowing down your metabolism because it's adding a chronic stressor. I am not saying this from a place of judgment. I am an energy drink addict, okay? I'm not saying this from a place of judgment. I'm saying be aware of your short and long-term inputs, right? So if you're somebody who loves a pre-workout drink, maybe take like 3 weeks every month, 3 weeks every other month or something, where you come off of it and you don't take any. Because then when you do take it, it works again, right? Because again, how many times can we say this in one episode? Your body responds to the inputs that you give it.
Absolutely.
So summarizing, sorry, I interrupted on that. The things that actually improve your metabolism: 1, eating more strategically and spending time not dieting. 2, strength training, not just cardio. 3, increasing NEAT activity, daily movement that is not like, okay, I need to go to the gym. It's like, get up and walk down your stairs to go get something from the basement instead of being like, this is me. Again, I'm speaking about myself versus me asking Brett to go do it for me, right? Like, get my ass up and go walk to the mailbox, do more things. Prioritize sleep and stress management. Again, that includes things that you might feel are relaxing in the moment, like binge watching TV or scrolling your phone. Those are stimulants to our brain. Physical stimulants, over caffeinating, undersleeping, things like that can slow down our metabolism from the trickle-down effect it has on our hormones. And then last but not least, which I guess we kind of touched on this with spend less time dieting, but reverse dieting, right? Add calories gradually. Make sure that you are hitting your proteins while you are adding calories. If you only add calories and you don't add protein and strength training, you're going to be like the rest of America that overeats, right? But if you can add the protein and the strength along with it, you're going to put those extra calories towards really strategic muscle mass, muscle and bone mass, honestly, longevity, helping tissues.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we kind of covered our bases there, but it's just important to understand that your metabolism cannot break. It doesn't need to be fixed. You are not an anomaly. It just slows down and it speeds up based on your inputs and the trickle-down effect of gut, hormone, stress, sleep, all of those other components that play into that equation. So you can really maximize this if you just stop restricting calories all the time, lift like your husband lifts, lift like you want to build the most muscle you've ever built in your life. I love when women say, but I don't want to get bulky. You are not going to wake up one morning looking like the Hulk, right? It's a gradual process. It's not easy to build muscle. That should be your primary focus, is to fuel your body, be healthy, recover well, and build muscle. If you do those things, you will have probably the best looking physique you've ever had in your life. And you'll also feel good, which is wildly underrated. Is that it? Is that metabolism?
I guess. Yeah. And like, again, I just want to repeat this one because I feel like some people hear this and they don't process it. Regardless of your height or your age or your genetic background, you can adapt your metabolism. You are not special. No offense.
Yes, love it. Okay, hope that was helpful. We wanted to hit metabolism home again, really directly and clearly, because it's been a while. So that is all for this episode, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.